Have you ever experienced a shiver down your spine upon discovering a truth hidden for decades? That is occurring now in the Vatican's corridors while you continue your daily life. High-ranking authorities of the Catholic Church are on alert. Why did Pope Francis decide to reveal new details about the controversial third secret of Fatima? This secret was kept under lock and key for nearly a century. The apparitions of Our Lady at Fatima in 1917 were surrounded by mystery. 3 shepherd children received messages that supposedly predicted catastrophic world events. While the first 2 secrets were revealed, the third remained partially hidden, generating decades of speculation and theories. The Vatican claimed in 2000 that it had revealed everything, but now, surprisingly, Pope Francis has decided to bring new elements to light. What few people know is that this revelation was not a decision made quickly. Sources close to the pontiff reveal that Francis spent nights in prayer before making this significant decision. The question he faced was difficult: whether to reveal a truth that could shake the faith of millions, or to continue maintaining a silence that he considered a moral burden. The implications of these new revelations are profound and disturbing. Religious historians are already re-evaluating the entire context of the apparitions of Fatima. Documents that once seemed clear are now being questioned. The chronology of events is being thoroughly re-examined. What seemed to be a concluded chapter in modern Catholic history has just been dramatically reopened. The most disturbing aspect is that this revelation does not occur at a random moment. We live in times of unprecedented global instability since World War II. Conflicts are spreading across different continents. Climate crises are intensifying, and humanity seems to be heading towards a turning point. Could it be a coincidence that the Pope has decided to share this information now, or could there be a direct connection between the revealed content and the current moment we are living in? You may be wondering why this matters to you. The answer is simple and alarming. Regardless of your personal faith, the prophecies of Fatima have demonstrated an uncanny ability to predict significant global events. And if the new elements revealed point to events that are yet to come and directly affect your life, your family, your future, this is a revelation that no one can afford to ignore. It all began in a small Portuguese village called Fatima, in a context that few understand deeply. It was 1917. The world was devastated by the First World War. Millions of young people were dying in the trenches while the Spanish flu prepared to decimate even more lives. It was in this apocalyptic scenario that the inexplicable happened. 3 humble children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, reported supernatural encounters that would forever change the course of religious history. What many do not know is that before the apparitions, these children experienced encounters with an angel of peace who prepared them for what was to come. This crucial detail is rarely mentioned in popular narratives, but is fundamental to understanding the depth of what happened. The children were prepared for a revelation that would be too heavy for their childish minds to fully comprehend. On May 13th, the first apparition occurred. But what few understand is the visceral reaction that the children had. They were not simply impressed, they were transformed. Witnesses of the time report that the faces of the little visionaries radiated a type of light that had never been seen before. Some even said that it was impossible to look directly at the children during their ecstasies. The secrets were revealed mainly in the third apparition in July 1917. The first secret showed a vision of hell that terrified the young seers. The second predicted the end of the First World War, the beginning of a worse Second World War, and called for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But the third remained a mystery for decades. It was unsettling how Francisco and Jacinta died a few years after the apparitions, just as the lady had predicted. Only Lucia lived a long life, becoming a nun and keeping the secret for decades. The details of her monastic life reveal periods of intense spiritual suffering and deep questioning. She carried a burden that few could bear. What truly intrigues me is how these events, occurring over a century ago, continue to influence the modern world. And if these secrets were not just about the past or present, but contained keys to understanding what is yet to come in our lives, ignoring these revelations would be like closing your eyes to a lighthouse in a dangerous storm. The third secret of Fatima remains one of the greatest religious enigmas of the 20th century. In 1944, Sister Lucia finally transcribed the third secret in a sealed letter with express instructions that it could only be opened by the Pope or the Bishop of Leiria after 1960. Why this specific date? Lucia simply said that after that year, it would become clearer. This statement alone should cause us to deeply question what is at stake. The secret remained kept in the Vatican for decades, fueling extraordinary speculation. Some cardinals who supposedly read it turned pale and disturbed. Cardinal Ottaviani, after reading the content, said he was faced with terrible words. Pope John XXIII decided not to reveal the secret after reading it in 1959, saying that it did not refer to the years of his pontificate. These reactions of powerful men of the Church cannot be ignored. When the Vatican finally released what it called the complete third secret in 2000, many were disappointed. The revelation dealt with a bishop dressed in white, who would be killed by soldiers, interpreted as a prediction of the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II in 1981. But something did not fit. Why so much secrecy about something that had already happened? Why did Lucia, who was still alive, seem so reticent to confirm that everything had been revealed? Theologians and scholars of Fatima pointed out serious inconsistencies. The revealed secret did not correspond to the previous descriptions made by those who supposedly knew it. Cardinal Ratzinger, future Pope Benedict XVI, had mentioned in 1984 that the secret spoke of dangers to the faith and life of the Christian, and consequently to the world. Where were these elements in the revelation of 2000? This discrepancy fueled theories that only part of the secret had been revealed. Prominent figures of the Church, such as the late Father Gabriele Amorth, chief exorcist of the Vatican, went so far as to openly state that the true third secret contained apocalyptic predictions about internal apostasy of the Church and world cataclysms. Cardinal Charpy, personal theologian to 5 popes, enigmatically declared, "In the third secret it is revealed among other things that the great apostasy in the Church will begin at the top." It is this chilling statement that has never been satisfactorily explained. What makes all this more urgent is the fact that the first 2 prophecies of Fatima were fulfilled with frightening accuracy. If these children correctly predicted world events decades before they happened, should we really be ignorant of what the third secret may contain? And now, with Pope Francis apparently willing to reveal new elements, we are on the verge of discovering truths that have been deliberately hidden for nearly a century. On June 26, 2000, the Vatican finally published what it claimed was the full text of the third secret of Fatima. The document described a vision of a bishop dressed in white ascending a mountain past a ruined city littered with corpses and being killed by soldiers. Cardinal Sodano interpreted this as a symbolic representation of the persecutions of the Church in the 20th century, culminating in the attempted assassination of John Paul II in 1981. Case closed. Far from it. What few noticed were the serious inconsistencies in the official presentation. Firstly, the revealed text was only 62 lines, surprisingly short considering its historical impact. Secondly, it contained no words of the Virgin Mary, only a vision described. This directly contradicts the statements of Sister Lucia herself, who always affirmed that the third secret included specific words from Our Lady in continuity with the phrase, "In Portugal the dogma of faith will always be preserved," etc. Where this etc. would be precisely the beginning of the third secret. Another disturbing factor was Lucia's behavior after the revelation. In her rare subsequent interviews, the visionary seemed strangely contained, almost as if she were under some kind of restraint. When asked if everything had been revealed, her answers were vague and ambiguous. For someone who had been so direct on other occasions, this behavior raised serious suspicions among those who followed the case closely. Cardinal Ratzinger himself, who oversaw the publication of The Secret in 2000, made enigmatic statements that left many questions unanswered. When asked if the entire secret had been revealed, he replied, "Whoever believes that the prophetic message of Fatima is completely fulfilled is mistaken." Years later, as Pope Benedict XVI, he visited Fatima and made another disconcerting statement: "Anyone who thinks that the prophetic mission of Fatima is complete is deluded." Internal Vatican documents that have come to light in recent decades indicate that there were, in fact, 2 texts related to the third secret: the vision that was revealed and a separate letter containing the words of the Virgin Mary explaining the vision, which would remain hidden. The late Cardinal Loris Capovilla, personal secretary to Pope John XXIII, confirmed the existence of 2 different envelopes containing parts of the secret kept in different locations in the Vatican. Given this evidence, the inevitable question arises: what could be so terrible about the words of the Virgin Mary that would justify their concealment even when the vision was revealed? If the official interpretation were correct and complete, Why did so many church authorities continue to make ambiguous statements? And now, with new revelations seemingly imminent from Pope Francis, we are about to discover what has really been kept in the shadows for all these years. Pope Francis' decision to reveal new elements of the third secret does not occur in isolation. We are facing an unprecedented moment in modern history: global pandemics, wars in multiple countries, intensified climate disasters, extreme political polarization, technological advances that challenge the very definition of humanity. For many observers, current world conditions seem disturbingly aligned with apocalyptic descriptions present in various religious traditions. What few know is that Francis has shown a growing concern for the spiritual state of humanity. In private meetings with bishops and cardinals, the pontiff has repeatedly expressed his conviction that we are living in decisive moments for the future of civilization. Sources close to him reveal that he has undergone deep spiritual reflection in recent months, facing what he has described as a dark night of the soul, a period of intense spiritual testing that preceded his decision. A crucial factor that many overlook is Francis' personal connection to Fatima. In 2017, during the centenary of the apparitions, he canonized the visionaries Francisco and Jacinta Marto. During this visit to Fatima, something significant happened that received no media attention. The Pope spent several hours alone in the chapel of the apparitions in deep prayer. Witnesses report that he emerged visibly shaken from this moment of seclusion. Another disturbing element is the timing of this revelation. It coincides with a period of unprecedented turmoil within the Catholic Church itself: internal divisions, scandals, questions about traditional doctrines. The institution is going through a crisis that many compare to the Protestant Reformation. Could this revelation be an attempt to unify the faithful in the face of a greater purpose? Or could it be a final warning before even more dramatic events? The fragile health of the Pope cannot be ignored in this equation either. At 88 years old and facing recurring health problems, Francis seems to be aware of the finiteness of his pontificate. Sources from the Vatican indicate that he expressed concern about not leaving this world carrying the weight of a secret that he considers crucial for humanity. "I do not want to face my Creator knowing that I kept silent when I should have spoken," he confided in a close collaborator. The most alarming thing is that this revelation breaks with a tradition of caution that previous popes have maintained on the subject. John Paul II, even after suffering the assassination attempt that was supposedly predicted in the secret, opted for a partial revelation. Benedict XVI, a profound scholar of Fatima, maintained the status quo. What did Francis see or understand that led him to take a different path? The answer to this question may be more disturbing than we imagined. The information that is beginning to emerge about the content of the new revelations is truly disturbing. According to sources close to the Vatican, the full text of the third secret contains explicit references to a great apostasy within the Church itself, a massive departure from the traditional faith that would begin with those who wear the sacred vestments. This revelation would explain why successive popes have hesitated to disclose the full content. The message indicated an internal crisis that would shake the foundations of the institution. A particularly alarming element is the mention of a false church that would emerge and coexist with the true church. The text apparently describes a period in which the faithful would have immense difficulty in discerning between true teachings and altered doctrines that would seem convincing and attractive. This scenario of spiritual confusion would be the prelude to even more dramatic events on a global scale. The secret would also contain specific warnings about technological innovations that would profoundly alter human nature. References to men who would become like machines and minds controlled by invisible forces take on a chilling meaning in light of advances in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and brain-machine interfaces. It is impressive how words supposedly spoken in 1917 could so accurately describe ethical dilemmas we face in the 21st century. Another aspect revealed would be a sequence of unprecedented natural disasters, described as fire falling from the sky and waters that would swallow entire nations. For decades, these passages have been interpreted as possible references to nuclear wars. However, in light of accelerated climate change and phenomena such as massive forest fires, melting glacier, and rising seas, these words take on a new and terrifying clarity. Particularly disturbing is the mention of a final conflict for control of Jerusalem that would precede a global renewal of faith. This specific passage would have been considered so politically sensitive that its release was blocked for decades to avoid further inflaming tensions in the Middle East. With current conflicts in the region reaching critical levels, this part of the prophecy takes on frightening relevance. The most shocking element, however, refers to a specific period of time, 100 years of probation, after which a definitive divine intervention would come if humanity did not change its course. If we count from the apparitions in 1917, this period would be completed exactly in our days. Could this be why Pope Francis has decided to reveal these contents now? We are living in the decisive moment predicted more than a century ago by 3 children in a remote Portuguese village. The global religious community has been in an unprecedented state of turmoil since the first news of the new revelations began to circulate in the Vatican. A clear division has formed between those who support Pope Francis' decision and others who consider the revelation hasty and potentially dangerous. Conservative cardinals, in particular, have expressed concern that the content could be misinterpreted and cause unnecessary panic among the faithful, while progressive wings argue that transparency was much needed. Contemplative monasteries around the world, those dedicated primarily to prayer, report a dramatic increase in the intensity of their spiritual practices. In Fatima, Portugal, the shrine that marks the site of the apparitions is experiencing an extraordinary influx of pilgrims, with queues of several hours waiting to visit the chapel of the apparitions. Many arrive in a state of deep spiritual anxiety, seeking to understand the meaning of the revelations for their personal lives. What few notice is how other Christian denominations are reacting. Orthodox leaders, particularly from the Russian Orthodox Church, have expressed intense interest. In light of the new revelations, Patriarch Kirill has called a special meeting of metropolitans to discuss the theological implications of the revealed content. It is significant that Russia is specifically mentioned in the Fatima prophecies in the request for the consecration of that country to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Even more surprising has been the reaction of non-Christian religious leaders. Prominent rabbis are studying the revelations in light of Jewish prophecies about messianic times. Islamic scholars have identified disturbing parallels with certain eschatological traditions present in the Hadiths. Even Eastern traditions such as Buddhism and Hinduism are finding correspondences with their own prophecies about a period of spiritual degradation followed by cosmic renewal. At the grassroots level, the impact has been even more profound. Parishes report a significant increase in attendance at Mass and confessions. Prayer groups are multiplying, many of them dedicated specifically to the Rosary, the devotional practice that was emphasized in the Fatima apparitions. Spiritual retreats are experiencing unprecedented waiting lists, while books on the Fatima apparitions are quickly selling out from physical and virtual stores. But perhaps the most intriguing phenomenon is the emergence of numerous reports of mystical experiences related to Fatima, visions of the Virgin Mary, prophetic dreams, and unexplained phenomena such as the miracle of the sun phenomenon reported in 1917. When thousands witnessed the sun dancing in the sky, ordinary people around the world are now reporting experiences that they consider supernatural confirmations of the authenticity of the revelations. These reports are being collected and investigated by specialized teams appointed by dioceses of several countries. We are witnessing a unique moment in modern religious history, in which a centuries-old prophecy seems to be catalyzing a global spiritual renewal. The question that remains: does this wave of fervor represent only a temporary emotional reaction, or are we seeing the first signs of a profound transformation in the religious consciousness of humanity, precisely as the secret itself would have predicted? The impact of the new revelations transcends the religious sphere, penetrating deeply into the political, social, and scientific spheres. World leaders, even those from notoriously secular nations, are following the developments with an attention that would have been unthinkable just a few decades ago. When the person who billions consider to be God's representative on earth makes a revelation of this magnitude, even the most skeptical are forced to take note. The most surprising thing has been the reaction of the scientific community. Physical climate scientists and artificial intelligence experts are examining with interest the passages of the prophecies that seem to allude to contemporary technological developments and natural phenomena. A renowned astrophysicist from the University of Cambridge recently commented, "I cannot explain how predictions made a century ago could describe with such accuracy phenomena that we have only begun to understand in the last decade. This challenges my understanding of causality." In financial markets, the repercussions were immediate and significant. Data analysis shows a significant increase in investments in technologies considered resilient, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, water purification systems. At the same time, there was a notable drop in sectors associated with technologies potentially mentioned in The Secret as problematic. This correlation suggests that even pragmatic investors are incorporating the revelations into their long-term strategies. In the field of geopolitics, there is a subtle but noticeable change in the dynamics of certain international negotiations. Diplomats report a new urgency in talks on arms control and climate agreements. Particularly notable is the new approach to diplomatic relations involving Jerusalem and the Middle East region, specifically mentioned in the revelations. Inside sources report that some world leaders have requested full confidential briefings on the content of the prophecies. The cyber phenomenon surrounding the revelations is equally impressive. Analysis of social media trends shows that Fatima-related terms have dominated global platforms for weeks in a row, outstripping even celebrities and sporting events. Even more significant is the type of engagement, not just casual sharing, but deep and substantive discussions about the meaning of the prophecies for contemporary society. Online groups dedicated to analyzing every word of the revelations have sprung up in virtually every language. Particularly fascinating is the impact on younger generations, traditionally considered the most distant from institutional religion. Recent surveys indicate a surprising increase in interest in spiritual matters among individuals aged 18 to 29. Universities report record enrollments in courses related to religious studies, mysticism, and prophecy. A professor of sociology of religion observed, "We are seeing a generation raised in the digital age turn to transcendent questions in a way we have not seen since the 1960s. The most profound aspect of this secular response is perhaps what it reveals about our contemporary condition. In an era defined by extreme polarization, accelerating change, and widespread anxiety about the future, the revelations of Fatima seem to offer a broader context for interpreting our contemporary dilemmas. Even for non-believers, they provide a narrative framework that suggests that current challenges, however serious, are part of a larger pattern that will eventually lead to a positive outcome. The new revelation apparently contains a chronology of future events described in a specific sequence, something that has never been disclosed before. This temporal aspect of The Secret is particularly significant because it offers concrete reference points for identifying the unfolding of prophecy in real time. According to sources close to the Vatican, the sequence begins with a period of confusion within the Church, followed by tribulations that will shake the nations. The prophetic text apparently identifies three distinct phases in this sequence of events. The first would already be underway, a period of obscuration of doctrine and division among the pastors of the Church. The second phase would involve natural calamities of unprecedented magnitude, with specific references to fire falling from the sky on many nations, and seas rising to engulf coastal cities. The third phase, the most dramatic, describes a global conflict centered on Jerusalem that would assume both physical and spiritual dimensions. Particularly disturbing is the apparent alignment between these predictions and trends already observable. polarization within the Catholic Church has reached unprecedented levels in recent years. Extreme weather events, catastrophic wildfires, record flooding, and hurricanes of unprecedented intensity are already occurring with alarming frequency, and tensions in the Middle East appear to be escalating to a potential point of no return. This convergence of factors suggests that we may already be living in the early stages of the prophesied sequence. The document would also mention a specific period, described as a few years, not many decades, during which humanity would face its most intense apprehension. After this critical period would come a major intervention that would fundamentally change the course of human history. This intervention is described in terms that suggest an event of cosmic scale, visible and recognizable to all humanity, regardless of religious affiliation. A chronological element often overlooked in discussions of Fatima is the so-called Eighth Apparition that occurred in the Spanish village of Pontevedra in 1925, in which Lucia received additional instructions on the devotion of the 5 first Saturdays. This devotional practice was presented as a condition to postpone or mitigate the more severe consequences described in The Secret. The new revelation apparently clarifies that the time for this merciful reprieve is drawing to a close. Theologians are now intensely debating the nature of the signs that would precede the final phase of the prophetic sequence. The text mentions a sign in the sky that all will be able to see, and a final warning that will be felt inwardly by each person. These descriptions seem to allude to events both external and internal, both collective and deeply personal. The implication is that each individual will have the opportunity to recognize the gravity of the moment and make their spiritual choices before the most dramatic events unfold. The chronology culminates with a description of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, a central concept in all the apparitions of Fatima. What is remarkable about the new revelations is the clarification that this triumph does not simply mean a return to the status quo ante, but a fundamental transformation of human civilization after a period of purification. The text suggests an era of peace and spiritual harmony, but makes it clear that this renewal will only come after severe trials that will test humanity's faith to its limits. It is crucial to recognize that many of the signs mentioned in the third secret are not distant future events, but realities that are already unfolding all around us. The most obvious of these signs is the profound crisis of faith affecting the Western world. The statistics are alarming. In traditionally Catholic countries such as Ireland, Spain, and Quebec, religious practice has fallen to historically low levels. Churches that for centuries were vibrant centers of community are now being sold or converted to other uses. This eclipse of faith, as The Secret apparently describes it, is not a prophecy, it is our current reality. The division among the pastors of the church mentioned in The Secret is now manifesting itself in heated debates over fundamental questions of doctrine and practice. Bishops oppose bishops, cardinals publicly criticize papal decisions, something almost unthinkable in previous eras. This internal fragmentation is precisely in line with The Secret's warnings of a time when those who should lead will find themselves in confusion. To those who are paying attention, this sign could not be more evident or disturbing. On the geopolitical scene, we are witnessing the rise of powers that challenge the world order established after the Cold War. The references to Russia in the Fatima messages take on new relevance in light of recent events in Eastern Europe. Regional conflicts that once seemed isolated now converge in patterns that suggest the possibility of a global confrontation, exactly as predicted in the visions of the three shepherds. The instability in Jerusalem and the Middle East, specifically mentioned in The Secret, intensifies with each passing year. The extreme weather events of recent years, devastating fires, storms of record intensity, periods of prolonged drought followed by catastrophic floods, seem to correspond to the descriptions of fire falling from the sky and waters invading vast regions. Modern science attributes these events to climate change, but their coincidence with the prophecies of Fatima is disconcerting, to say the least. Many scientists, including some religious skeptics, are surprised by the acceleration of these phenomena beyond the most pessimistic projections. In the technological domain, recent advances in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and brain-machine interfaces seem to echo the warnings about humans becoming like machines, and minds controlled by invisible forces. These technologies, developed with the best intentions, bring with them profound ethical questions about the nature of human consciousness and the meaning of existence, exactly the kind of spiritual crisis predicted in The Secret. A particularly disturbing sign, often ignored in secular analyses, is the global resurgence of occult practices and alternative spiritualisms, described in The Secret as false lights that will lead many away from the true path. The popularization of practices such as tarot, astrology, and various neo-pagan rituals, often presented as harmless or even beneficial, corresponds precisely to what The Secret describes as a spiritual confusion that would precede the most dramatic events. Perhaps the most subtle, but profoundly significant sign, is what The Secret describes as a sadness that will weigh on hearts, an existential malaise that transcends merely psychological or sociological explanations. The rising rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide, especially among young people, point to an unprecedented crisis of meaning. This disease of the soul, as The Secret apparently characterizes it, manifests itself as an inner emptiness that no material comfort can fill. In the face of these disturbing revelations, the most pressing question is, how should we prepare for the events that are to come? The answer lies in the original messages of Fatima themselves, now illuminated by this new light. The first essential element is what the Virgin Mary called a conversion of life. Not simply a formal adherence to religious practices, but a deep and authentic transformation of the heart and mind. This conversion begins with sincere self-examination. The Secret emphasizes that the times of tribulation are, at their most fundamental level, consequences of collective human choices that have departed from essential spiritual principles. True preparation involves acknowledging our own participation in these choices and taking responsibility for changing our personal course. This is not a comfortable process. It involves confronting our flaws, prejudices, and self-deceptions. The second fundamental element is a return to authentic prayer, not merely mechanical recitations, but genuine dialogue with the divine. The apparitions of Fatima have repeatedly emphasized the importance of the Rosary, a contemplative practice that combines vocal prayer with meditation on key events in the life of Christ. The secret apparently makes it clear that this practice is not just an optional devotion, but an anchor of sanity during the times of greatest spiritual turmoil that we are beginning to experience. Particularly urgent is the exhortation to strengthen family and community bonds. The secret explicitly predicts that the systems and institutions in which many place their trust will come into crisis or collapse. Those who have cultivated strong relationships based on shared spiritual values will find in them a vital source of resilience. The family is described as the last refuge during the most turbulent times to come. An often overlooked aspect, but highlighted in the new revelation, is the importance of material simplicity. The message warns against over-attachment to comforts and luxuries that may become unavailable during times of scarcity. Those who have learned to live with less and cultivated gratitude for the essentials will be better prepared psychologically and spiritually for the material deprivations that may accompany the predicted events. The secret also emphasizes the importance of developing keen spiritual discernment, the ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood in an age of widespread confusion. This involves becoming deeply familiar with the authentic foundations of the faith and developing the ability to detect subtle distortions. As the prophetic text itself warns, many will be deceived by those who speak partial truths mixed with seductive errors. Centrally, true preparation involves a paradoxical attitude of calm urgency. The secret explicitly warns against two extremes: apocalyptic panic that leads to impulsive and harmful decisions, and complacency that ignores the signs of the times. The correct path is constant vigilance combined with trust in the ultimate promise of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart, the certainty that, regardless of the severity of the trials, the final outcome will be positive. Finally, the secret emphasizes that the most fundamental preparation is interior. When the most dramatic events begin to unfold, it will be too late to begin the essential spiritual work. As the message itself would warn, when the sky begins to shake, the time for preparation will have passed. The time to strengthen faith, cultivate virtue, and deepen commitment to truth is now, while we are still able to freely choose our path. The third secret of Fatima, now revealed in its entirety, is not simply a series of alarming predictions about future events. At its deepest level, it represents an interpretative key to understanding the exceptional historical moment we are living in. For those who examine it with an open mind and heart, the secret offers not only warnings, but a transformative perspective on the meaning of our time. The most fundamental aspect of this message is that the current crisis is not primarily political, economic, or even environmental. It is, at its core, spiritual. The various crises we face are outward manifestations of a deeper crisis of meaning and purpose. The secret squarely challenges the dominant secular narrative that sees human history as a trajectory of continuous progress driven by technology and instrumental reason. Instead, it presents our time as a critical moment of collective decision about fundamental values. What makes this revelation extraordinarily relevant is its understanding of the interconnected nature of our contemporary crises. Decades before scientists began to talk about complex systems and cascading effects, The Secret already described how spiritual imbalances would lead to social, political, and even ecological imbalances. This holistic view offers a vital counterpoint to the fragmentation of knowledge that characterizes much of modern thought. Particularly significant is The Secret's perspective on technology. Far from condemning scientific progress per se, the message warns of a fundamental imbalance: the development of technological capabilities without a parallel development of the wisdom needed to guide them. This warning resonates deeply in an age of advanced artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and automated weapons, where our creations threaten to outpace our understanding of their impacts. The Secret also offers a unique perspective on the suffering and hardships we are already facing and which appear set to intensify. Rather than seeing these tribulations as arbitrary punishments, the message presents them as natural consequences of collective choices, and, more importantly, as opportunities for spiritual awakening. The hardships we face are seen as wake-up calls that interrupt our complacency and invite us to question fundamental assumptions about how we live. One of the most hopeful aspects of The Secret is its insistence that it is not too late to change the course of events. Unlike a fixed and immutable destiny, the future described in The Secret is conditional, dependent on human responses. This vision affirms our freedom and responsibility at a profound level. As the message itself would affirm, the future is not written in stone, but in the daily choices of each human heart. The culmination of the message, the promised triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, transcends narrow denominational interpretations. Seen in its essence, it represents the final triumph of principles traditionally associated with the divine feminine: compassion over domination, cooperation over competition, integration over fragmentation. This vision offers a hopeful counterpoint to the prospect of civilizational collapse that dominates much contemporary thinking about the future. To fully understand the third secret, we must recognize that it does not simply invite us to wait passively for supernatural interventions. On the contrary, it calls us to active participation in the transformation of the world. The final message of Fatima, revealed only now in its entirety, is that we are living in a decisive moment in human history, a moment that demands of us courage, wisdom, and, above all, love. The future depends not only on heavenly forces, but on how each of us responds to the call of this extraordinary time.